Hi everybody, I'm Bonnie Barker with BonnieBayCrochet.com, and I'm really excited to bring to you my first crocheted sweater project. This project is primarily aimed at people who've never made a fitted garment, or maybe are a little intimidated by doing that. And I totally understand if that's you. Who can do this project? Anybody who is what I would call a confident beginner and above. A confident beginner is somebody who already knows the chain, single crochet, double crochet, half double crochet, the basic stitches, and you don't have any problem going across rows and without skipping stitches unnecessarily and without adding additional stitches unintentionally, if that makes sense. So if that's you, and if your stitches look reasonably even, we're not going for perfect here, nobody's perfect, so reasonably even, you can accomplish this project, I believe, without a problem, or with very few. So for this project, I'm going to be using a more high-end yarn that's called City Tweeds by Knit Picks. It's a DK weight yarn. It's made primarily of a blend of wool and alpaca. It feels great. I'm wearing it now, and has some tweed in it as well. Let me get a little bit closer and let you see how this yarn looks. See, it's really nice yarn, and you'll see more of that up close in the videos. Now, if this is out of your budget, feel free to use any other DK or even a sport weight yarn. This project is more based on measuring your fabric rather than stitch by stitch. So I believe this will suit anybody of any size. Now, if you're interested in getting the yarn that I use for my project, there is a link in the video description below. It's my affiliate link, and what that means is that I will benefit in a small way if you use that link, but it's not going to cost you anything extra. Okay? So it's just kind of a little bonus that I get for recommending this yarn. But I will say up front that I've been always wanting to try this yarn, and the reason I selected this yarn is because of the quality, not for any financial benefit that I might get from using this yarn. Okay, I just want to be clear about that. All right, the pattern is available in my lovecrafts.com store. I highly recommend that you use the pattern because there are a lot of diagrams and things that I think will be extra helpful to you as you follow along with the videos. And all the other information you'll need is forthcoming. As far as yarn goes, the number of scans with the Knit Picks yarn, I believe there's approximately 128 yards per scan. And for the small to medium size, you're going to need 14 scans. For the large, extra large size, you're going to need approximately 16. And for the 2 to 3x size, you're going to need about 18. Now, if you need to make it larger than that, just make sure that you buy extra yarn so that you've got your dye lot covered and everything. Oh, one more thing. If you are new to my channel, if you could please hit that thumbs up if you like the video, and as always, if you could hit that subscribe button. That way you won't miss anything coming your way, and also that little notification bell, and that'll guarantee that you will get the notifications every time I upload new videos. And I have a lot of fun things coming your way this year. Okay, let's get on with the video. For this project, I'm going to be using quite a few of the Knit Picks City Tweed DK scans of yarn. I just wanted to show you just how nice this yarn is. Let me give you some more stats on it. It is 55% merino wool, 25% superfine alpaca, 20% Donegal tweed. Each scan has 123 yards or 50 grams of yarn. And you're going to need to check the pattern to see exactly how many you need for the size that you're going to make, because this is going to vary quite a bit from size to size. And I don't want to confuse you with listing a whole series of numbers. I'm also going to ask you to have a size H or 8 or 5.00 millimeter crochet hook. In addition to the hook and yarn, I'm also recommending that you have a sharp pair of scissors, a yarn needle for hiding loose ends, and the measuring tape. This is going to be very important as
we make our sweater because it's important that the pieces that we are making come out to certain measurements, and you're going to want to verify that so that you can decide whether to add or subtract stitches. Okay, before we begin, I just want to encourage you to take a look at the pattern and do make a small test swatch or a little sample using the wattle stitch. It's very important that you know how many wattle stitches you are getting per a certain number of inches so that you can do this accurately. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start with my slip knot. And when I crochet my chains, I do like to do these in multiples of 5 just to help me keep track. But I'm going to go ahead and chain 98 chains. It'll be 5, 10, etc. So I'm going to go ahead and finish my 98 chains. To begin row number 1, we are going to single crochet in each stitch across, and we're going to start in the second chain from the hook and work that single crochet. And we're going to do that in each stitch all the way across. For the large size, at the end you should have 97 single crochets. At the end of row 1, you should have 97 single crochets if you're making the large size. Again, check your pattern to make sure that you have the correct number of sizes. The number, stitches. The number of stitches will be in parentheses at the end of the row that you are making. Okay, so now we're going to turn and we're going to chain 2, 1, 2, and we're going to begin in the very first stitch. We're going to make our first wattle stitch, which is going to be a single crochet, chain 1, and a double crochet worked all in the same place. Now we're going to skip the next 2 stitches, 1, 2, and in the next stitch, which is right here, we're going to work another wattle stitch, which is a single crochet, chain 1, and a double crochet. And we're going to do that all the way across the row. Skip 2 single crochets, and in the next stitch we work a single crochet, chain 1, a double crochet. And I'm going to refer to this as a wattle stitch, but I'll try to talk it out as we go along the first row, or actually row number 2, but the first row of the wattle stitch. Skip 2, insert single crochet, chain 1, and double crochet. Now let me say one thing real quickly here. If I crochet too quickly for you, or you need to slow me down, I just want to show you how to do that right here for the right-handed, or it's going to be on this other side for the left-handed. If you're watching on a computer, there'll be a little brown sprocket, looks like a little gear. If you just click on that, you can select the playback speed. You can slow it down or you can speed it up to whatever degree you would like. And this should work for any video, not just mine. And up in the corner here, if you're working from a cell phone, right up here for the right-handed, or right on this side for the left-handed, you'll see 2 little vertical dots. If you click on that, it does the exact same thing. It changes. You can select the playback speed so that you can change the speed. So we're just right now, we're just going to continue working these wattle stitches, skip 2 stitches and work the wattle stitch in the next stitch all the way across. For this particular size, you should have 32 wattle stitches when you reach the end of the row, and I'll show you the end of the row. At the end of the row, we're just going to work a single crochet after we skip those last two more stitches, and then in that last stitch, you just work a single crochet. Okay, hopefully that stitch count worked out for you. Okay, now we're going to turn, and I'm going to show you how to work row 3, which is going to be what you're going to be working a lot of for the rest of this, or for a time at least, for this section of the sweater. We're going to chain 2, and we're going to skip the double crochet, and we're going to only work in the chain 1 spaces that are created by those wattle stitches that we just worked. And we're going to work a single crochet, chain 1, and a double crochet in each chain 1 space across. So we're going to skip the single crochet, skip that double crochet, and go right to the next chain 1 space, work a single crochet, chain 1, and a double crochet. And this is where you can use the nerve endings in your tall man and your thumbkin, and you can really feel for this space, and it helps use that to guide your hook. Single crochet, chain 1, double crochet. So go ahead and, working only in the chain 1 spaces, work these wattle stitches all the way across the row. After working these all the way across, I want you to work a single crochet in the chain 2, right like that at the end. And this is what you should have. You should have still 32 wattle stitches in each row. Now I want you to do something very important. I'd like you to take your tape measure and definitely measure the length of your piece right now. It should be the measurement that is shown in the pattern, and if it's, you know, within an inch or so, I would still, you know, go with it. But if it's significantly different than what it should be as far as the width goes, you're going to want to make an adjustment, maybe even start again with fewer wattle stitches. And what you can do is, if you decide you want to take out 2 or 3 wattle stitches, that's easy enough to do. You would just subtract 3 stitches from the starting chain for each wattle stitch that you want to either take away or add, okay? So the multiple of 3 is the key for this starting chain. And I know that would be troublesome for some of you to do that, but it's better to do that now than to have a completed sweater and try that on and find out that you should have done it about 100 rows ago. So I'm not doing this to complicate your life, but actually to make it easier. I actually had to do that while I was making my sample. I thought I was good with the numbers I was working with, and decided that after making this section that I needed to adjust. So I've actually adjusted the numbers to better suit the sweater project. Now from this point on, you're going to repeat the row that we just completed, row number 3. Repeat it until this section measures 13 inches for the large size. Do check your pattern and to see how many inches you need to go in order to make the size that you desire. So go ahead and do that. And just to let you know that this is the distance from the bottom of the sweater minus the trim. I'm going to add some trim before this is done, but that's only going to be maybe 2 inches. So the bottom of the sweater to the place where the sweater comes to the beginning of the underarm is what we're working on now. So that's going to be 13 inches for me. Double check the pattern to see what it is for your size. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then I'll show you what I have. After crocheting this for 13 inches, you should have material that looks like this. And I just love the way this yarn is coming out. That's the one beauty about using alpaca, is it tends to be on the drapier side, and combining that with the wool that is in this particular yarn, the wool is actually going to help the sweater to maintain its shape better than if it was simply pure alpaca, because alpaca does tend to stretch out over time, again due to its drapiness, but combining it with the wool really makes it nice. Okay, now that we've completed the 13 inches, again, if you're making a different sweater size, please check the pattern and make sure that you have completed the number of inches that you need. Now the number of rows may vary, so I'm not even going to give you the number of rows that I've crocheted here, because that's honestly not nearly as important as the size. Now the size measured is not being stretched, it's just laying still. Okay, now we're going to mark this point. Now if you have a stitch marker, you can mark this row with a stitch marker like this, or if you have a little round plastic ones, that in anything would work fine. Actually, if you even had an earring like this, that would actually make an excellent stitch marker. But let's assume that you don't have any right now. You don't have to run out to the store to get anything. If you have a piece of contrasting color yarn, what you can do is mark the row just like this. This is the other side. I'm going to mark it simply by pulling this yarn through. And watch what I do here. I'm not going to tie a knot, but I'm just going to tie a gentle bow that can come out quite easily. Once I want to take this out, all I have to do is pull on the threads and it'll pull right out, which I'm not going to do for a while, because These markers here are marking the underarm, the part where the underarm begins on a sweater. So now from this point on, I'm going to have you crochet 7 more inches, and this is going to be the distance from the bottom of the arm opening to the shoulder, or the top of the arm opening. After we complete the next 7 inches, now, hear me clearly, I'm not saying 7 rows, 7 inches. So you're going to measure from this point onward 7 inches, and then after that I will show you how to begin the neck opening. After completing approximately 7 inches from the stitch marker, you can see that, we are ready now to work the section that's going to leave an opening for the neck. See, we are going to work this and the continuing part, which will be the front, all in one piece. So that's going to save having to sew any shoulder seams. Okay, so let's go ahead and turn our work. Now again, I'm working the large size. We're going to chain 2. Now we are going to work the waddle stitches only in the next 8 stitches. So I'll go ahead and work those 8 stitches. Okay, I've just finished working those 8 waddle stitches, and now we're just going to, in the next chain 1 space, we're just going to work a slip stitch, just like that. This is kind of anchoring the row. We're only going to work 8 stitches for now. These 16 waddle stitches in the center are going to be left open for the neck opening, and I'll show you how to work the other side once we're done with this. Okay, so now we're going to chain 2, and we're going to work just in those 8 waddle stitches, just the way we've been working across for the sweater. And we're going to do this until this section from here on is about 2 inches. I'll give you the row counts for that once I finish. But again, the measurement is what's more important over the row count. But I'll go ahead and finish those 2. Just for the sake of clarity, I crocheted across those 8 waddle stitches, chain 2, turn, and did 8 more. And you only have this little space here. So go ahead and work your single crochet in that single crochet stitch instead of the chain 3, since we kind of want this to come off to the side a little bit. Hopefully that's okay. And then you turn, chain 2, and just continue on. After completing 6 rows over those 8 waddle stitches, I have a section here that is approximately 2 inches. So I am going to fasten off at the end. I'm going to give it a chain and a tug and fasten off, leaving a nice long thread that can be woven into the work. Okay, now we're going to go back to where we started the first row with only 8 waddle stitches. I'm going to turn the piece back around, and we can skip the 16 in the center, or what I'm going to do, I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to come in from this side, so I only have to count 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 waddle stitches. Okay, I'm going to start right here. So I'm going to get my yarn handy. And actually, we're going to join in the 9th waddle stitch. We're going to come over here. This is the 9th. Let me verify that that's correct. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We're going to work over the 8, but we're going to join it in the 9th, just so that it mirrors what we did on the other side with that slip stitch. Okay, so we're just going to, I made my slip knot. Let me put my hook out there. My slip knot, put it on my hook, bring it through, and just give it a chain, and that is pretty much going to mimic that slip stitch on the other side so that everything is symmetrical. Now we're going to start working in this stitch, or this chain 1 space, single crochet, chain 1, double crochet, and we're going to do this over these 8 stitches going across. And let me show you what we've done here, because in the center we're skipping 16 stitches and we're only working in the 8 across over here. So go ahead and do that. At the end of this, these 8 waddle stitches, we're just going to work a single crochet like we've been doing, turn, and that completes one row on the opposite side. So now we're going to do 5 more rows just like that. We're going to work those 8 waddle stitches, and then at the end of this row, just like we did on row 2 on the other side, we're just going to work that single crochet in the single crochet right here and leave the slip stitch alone, or the join actually. So I'm going to just work that single crochet there, and then that will end row 2, and then work 4 more rows of this. Now if you're not making the large size, do be sure that you check to make sure that you get the proper stitch count for the waddle stitches, because if you're making a different width, different size, you are going to have a different amount. The main thing is that you have 16 unworked stitches in the center for the collar portion. Once you finish the 6 rounds on the other side, make sure that they are, let's go ahead and compare, just to make sure that they are the same size. That's even more important than whether they're 2 inches or not, is whether they look the same, and they do look the same. So we're going to go ahead and, yes, we're going to fasten off here. And I'll go ahead and get my scissors. Okay, there we go. Leave a nice long strand for weaving this in. Okay, now we're going to turn the project again, and we're going to start. Make sure that the back side of the row that you were just now working on is facing, and we are going to join our yarn again, and go ahead and join in the stitch right here. Let me see. Okay, right where that single crochet was worked when we fastened off. So let's go ahead and make another slip knot, and then pull it through and join with a chain. That works very well. And go ahead and give it another chain. Now we're ready to work across again. We're going to work across those 8 stitches. Just very important though that you make sure to maintain this pattern of this waddle stitch that you have the back side facing. Okay, we're going to go ahead and work those 8 waddle stitches. After working those 8 waddle stitches across, go ahead and work a single crochet in that chain 2 space. If I can find it, there it is, right there. Now when we come back on the next pass, we are not going to work in this stitch, but you'll see what we're going to do next. Now what we're going to do is we're going to make a chain across to kind of like a bridge to reach from one side to the other side so we can continue crocheting. I'm going to have you crochet a chain of 48. After crocheting this chain of 48, and it's still connected over here, we are going to work on the other side of the sweater here, and go ahead and work a single crochet in this chain 2 space right here. Now we're going to start working in the chain 1 waddle stitch, or I'm sorry, work the waddle stitch in the chain 1 space of the other waddle stitches. So it's a single crochet, chain 1, double crochet, and go ahead and work those all the way across those 8 stitches. At the end of the row, just like we've been doing, work a single crochet in that chain 2 space. Now we're going to turn, and this is what you should have. I know it looks really strange, but we're about to get back to normal and crocheting those 32 waddle stitches all the way across in this row, and I'm going to show you how we do this. Chain 2, work those 8 waddle stitches in the chain 1 space of the waddle stitches from the last row. After crocheting these 8 waddle stitches across, we are going to skip the last single crochet here, and we're going to start working in the turning chain, or actually it's the chain, not a turning chain. We're going to work a single crochet, chain 1, and a double crochet in that first chain space. Skip 2, 1, 2, and then work a waddle stitch in the next stitch. Single crochet, chain 1, double crochet, skip the next 2 chains, single crochet, chain 1, double crochet. Go ahead and work that across this chain, and you should have 16 waddle stitches when you get to the other side. After working this all the way across, you should have 16 waddle stitches. We're going to go ahead and work a slip stitch just like this in that first single crochet, and this is just to minimize the hole that, or the gap that would be left otherwise, but we will not work in this stitch coming back the next row. And then we start the 8 waddle stitches on the other side of the sweater. I hope you see where we're going with this. So we've basically put back the stitches that we took out for the neck opening. So I'll go ahead and work these 8 waddle stitches. After working those 8 waddle stitches, again, we're going to work a single crochet in the place where it was joined, which is also a chain 2. And let's take a look at what we have now. Okay, so now we should have an opening for the neck. We're going to actually come along and we will finish this later. But from this point on, we are going to work across those 32 waddle stitches until this side, if you fold it right here at the top in half, until this side matches the front side that we began on. Okay, so now we're going to work this all the way. We'll go all the way to where the arm is, and you can measure that out if you'd like, and then mark it, and then just keep going until you are finished down here. It might be advisable to count to see how many rows that you crocheted in this first half and duplicate that, especially if your gauge is pretty well established, as I'm hoping that it is at this point. So you can just go ahead and match that up, and once you complete that, I will show you the next step. Okay, after finishing the front and the back all together, this is what you should have. And this opening here is going to be, of course, for the neck, and we're going to go ahead and we'll finish this off later. So both of these, when folded together, they should be even from here to here. Okay, now depending on the yarn that you're using, especially if you're using the wool blend that I'm recommending, the wool alpaca blend, you can block this to the specifications that you need, but just giving you a rough estimate right now, the size that I'm making, this from the top of the shoulder down is approximately 21 inches, and I'm getting about 19.5 inches across. So one thing you're going to want to make sure that you do is the dimensions that you need for yourself or whomever this sweater is being prepared for. Make sure that this will fit them. You're going to, since this is more of an outer garment, to be worn as a layer, it's quite all right if it's 1 to 2 inches larger than what you normally would wear, as far as the chest measurements and so forth. Okay, you recall that we marked the spot here on this side and on the other side where the armhole would begin, but we didn't mark the other side that we just completed. So what I need you to do is to line these up very carefully and go ahead and either using a stitch marker like I have here, or a piece of yarn, go ahead and mark the other side of both of these, okay, right here, so that you know where the arm begins and ends. Afterwards, you're going to need to get a needle. It can be a small needle or a large needle, it doesn't matter. I'm probably going to use more of a larger needle just because I do have it here to show you. But I am going to use a thread that matches quite nicely to the fabric. This is the thread that we don't want to be standing out in our work. And I will show you up close in just a minute. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to sew by hand using the whip stitch both this side and this side. And I promise you, this is the only sewing you're going to have to do for this entire project. So I'm going to sew both of these and I'll show you how to do that. And then after that, we are just going to be finishing by crocheting right around here in rounds. We're going to crochet the arms here and crochet an arm here. We will also work the collar, and then we will work the ribbing across the bottom of the sweater, and then the sweater will be done. You may also notice that you see a lot of strands here. And what I've tried to do is, this is actually the wrong side showing on the outside. So what you want to do is the good side that you want showing should be on the inside when you begin sewing this together. And yes, I did have most of the loose threads. I kind of pulled them to one side of the garment because I'm going to be hiding them on the inside, obviously. So go ahead and sew both of these up. I will show you, how to do that up close for those of you who need that. And then we will begin the other parts of the sweater. Okay, before we get to the sewing part, let me show you how to fasten this off. So we're going to make a chain, give it a tug, and I'm going to cut the strand. There we go, leaving a nice long string that can be worked into the work at another time. Removing that stitch marker, so I'm going to show you I'm using a needle, and it's kind of hard to see in this light, but I've doubled my thread and I've knotted it at the end, and I'm going to come right in here and I'm going to remove this stitch marker as well. Put it over there so I can use it later on, and I am just going to begin using a simple whip stitch. First, I'm going to secure my knot here. And you can use any sewing stitch, I guess, that you would like, but I just want something that's going to be secure. And let me show you something else that you can do to hold this fabric. Okay, I almost forgot to show you this. In order to hold your fabric together so that you don't, sew it together in the wrong way, you can use these things called knit clips. Now, you don't have to run out and buy these, but I have just found that these are fabulous when it comes to doing sewing with my crochet. So you just clip them together, and the advantage of this is that if you lose these or if they fall on the floor, unlike, let me show you, unlike pins like this, that that is another option. You can just take pins and pin your work together. I have in the past used smaller pins, and unfortunately, as you well know, they get lost in the floor sometimes, not intentionally, but if a family member happens to find one that you left behind, it's not a pleasant experience. So this is why when I first found these at a conference, I get them. They originally were by Susan Bates' company, Red Heart Yarns, I believe, came out with these. And what's really nice about them is you can just take them off when you get to that point, like when you're sewing along, and you can just take them off, and they're just about impossible to lose, unlike pins. But anyway, let's go ahead and back to the whip stitch. And the whip stitch is just simply going around and around. There's nothing fancy about this. You just want to make sure that the edges are secured. Some of you may wonder, well, why don't we just crochet these together? You have the option of crocheting these together with a slip stitch, or however you may be accustomed to doing that. But I find that makes a very bulky seam that I just don't desire. This makes a much smaller seam to deal with, and I just that is my preference. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and sew up both sides of the sweater here that I showed you, and then I will show you how to begin crocheting the sleeves.
Well, that ends video number 1. Video number 2 will show you how to finish with the ribbing trim and add the sleeves to your project. I think you're going to find that this is so much easier than you ever thought it was going to be. I'll see you in video number 2. God bless.